आज सबको मैं फिर से आई हब की तरफ से, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हायर एंड टेक्निकल एजुकेशन की तरफ से, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ गुजरात की तरफ से स्वागत करता हूं। आज हमारे स्पेशल वेबिनार में एक खास मेहमान हमारे साथ हैं जो आज की नोट स्पीकर भी हैं, श्री वी के सरस्वत जी, पद्म भूषण वी के सरस्वत जी, जो मेंबर ऑफ नीति आयोग हैं। सर, वेलकम टू गुजरात इन दिस आई हब स्पेशल सेशन। आज हमारे साथ प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी अंजू शर्मा मैडम, जो चेयरपर्सन ऑफ आई हब हैं, जिनके मार्गदर्शन में ये पूरी प्रकल्प शुरू से अभी तक चल रहा है। हमारे साथ प्रोफेसर हिमांशु पांडे जुड़े हुए हैं, जो चीफ मेंटर हैं आई हब की। आई हब गुजरात सरकार का फ्लैगशिप इंस्टीट्यूशन है। इनोवेशंस को ढांचागत तरीके से इकोसिस्टम बनाने के लिए जो प्रयास है उसी के माध्यम से होता है। हमारे साथ आज नागराजन जी जुड़े हुए हैं, जो कमिश्नर हायर एजुकेशन हैं और जो ऑनररी एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर हैं, जो हायर एजुकेशन के अंदर कॉलेजेस में इनोवेशंस को प्रचार करने के लिए काफी कार्यरत हैं। अभिनव जी जुड़े हुए हैं विवेक सरस्वत जी की टीम से, जिनकी मदद से आज हम ये प्रोग्राम को क्यूरेट कर पाए। और गुजरात की करीब 15 से ज्यादा यूनिवर्सिटीज की विद्यार्थी, जिनकी फेसबुक पेज के माध्यम से लाइव हो रहा है, और 3-4 हजार इनोवेटर जिनको हमने इस सेशन के लिए स्पेशली आमंत्रित किया है, सबको मैं स्वागत करता हूँ। और आज इस सेशन में वी के सरस्वत जी एक रूपरेख बताने वाले हैं कि किस तरीके से नीति आयोग के माध्यम से, किस तरीके से प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में एक इनोवेशन की जो सिस्टमेटिक एफर्ट हो रहा है भारत में, और जो हम लोग स्टेट पे कोशिश कर रहे हैं आई हब जैसी संस्थाएं के द्वारा, उसकी सामंजस्य से किस तरीके से नया इंडिया हम बना सकते हैं, उसके ऊपर वो आज हमको मार्गदर्शन करने वाले हैं। मीनवाइल, आई वुड लाइक टू इंट्रोड्यूस वी के सरस्वत जी टू द ऑडियंस. V.K. Saraswat ji is India's most gifted scientist and an accomplished researcher with more than 4 decades of experience spanning over several fields and areas in both basic and applied science of defense research. Apart from being a scientist, he is a rare combination of an innovator, technologist, and visionary. He was born on 25th May 1949, completed engineering from Gwalior, Masters of Engineering from IISc Bangalore, and PhD from Osmania University. During his illustrious career, from scientist to scientific advisor to defense minister, director to director general to DRDO, and secretary to Department of Defense and R&D, Dr. Saraswat has been credited with development of liquid propulsion rocket engines and missile named Prithvi, Dhanush, Prathar indigenously. He is the principal architect of the ballistic missile defense program, which included major technology breakthroughs. The successive interceptions of incoming target ballistic missiles at Expo and Indo-atmospheres are a testimony of his dedicated efforts and exploitation of limited technological resources. With this, India joined the selected nations league that have the capability to develop BMD systems. Dr. Saraswat brought new dimension to strategic defense scenario, the successful test firing of Agni 5, Shaurya, Tejas, INS Arihant, and many more. Thus, today nation can boast the research reaching any source in the world with nuclear-capable missiles with different strike range. Under his leadership, DRDO provided the technologies developed by them for societal benefits, namely solar-powered modular green shelters, biodigesters, AHAR programs, explosive detection kits, diagnostic units for dengue, chikungunya, etc. Dr. Saraswat's pioneering efforts has taken steps into establishment of Research and Innovation Center IIT Madras, MILIT Center for Training Needs and Armed Forces of SNT, CERT for reporting, auditing, and handling emergency response for information security incidents, and many more. Till recently, Dr. Saraswat was the DAE Homi Bhabha chair and initiated development of technologies for energy security, namely biomass, solid waste management, fuel cell, concentrated solar power, and many more. Dr. Saraswat has been given numerous awards, namely Padma Bhushan in 2013, Padma Shri in 1998, Bikram Sarabhai Memorial Award in 2001, Lifetime Achievement Award by Ramakrishna Vivekananda International Foundation, New Delhi, Jawaharlal Nehru's SNT Award for 2009, FICCI Annual Award, Aryabhatta Award, National Aeronautical Prize, and many more. I would now like to request Nagarjun sir, Commissioner of Higher Education, to give the welcome address.
I think Hiranmai, let's move on to sir's session. He has been excellently introduced, and I extend a very warm welcome on behalf of Education Department and I have to this show, and also welcome his colleague, Mr. Abhinav. I'm glad to welcome Madam Anju Sharma and Professor Himanshu Pandya, who are always there to support and guide us. Let us now request Sir to start the session.
I'm now going to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to talk to you on innovation and startup system in the country and how we should do it, particularly with the emphasis on the COVID situation, which has also affected all of us in the business and economy.
Perfect, sir.
Yeah, so we are talking about nurturing innovation and startup ecosystem in India, and basic aim and objective is to make India Atmanirbhar. This has been the call during the pandemic by our Honorable Prime Minister. I have been, of course, advocating self-reliance from the very early days in my career. Since you read about my some journeys in the Ministry of Defense and DRDO particularly, where our main emphasis was to be self-reliant in the field of missiles. And that has enabled the country to today practically be 100% self-reliant as far as that technology is concerned. But now this has to be done in all other sectors. For that, the most important part is to look at what is the innovation and what is creativity. All of us, we know that creativity is the generation of an idea. And innovation is converting that idea into a business proposition and bringing economic value in the business world. So creativity and innovation, they are like this, one over the other. You create something and take it to the market through the various processes and steps, then you learn and get value out of it. Countries have realized that innovation is fundamental to the economic well-being and are finding new ways to advance their innovation agenda. And our Honorable Prime Minister, first time after taking over as a Prime Minister of the country in 2015, said that he was addressing the Indian Science Congress at the time, and he said our long-term global competitiveness will depend not only on replicating what others have done, but will emerge through a process of sustained development and innovation. That is what he said. And since then, he has been really giving a major push to the innovation. And I can only, although I will address that point later also in my talk, but I can only tell you in the last 5 to 6 years, India, which used to be somewhere down the line in the innovation index at 151 or so, we have jumped, 85 or so in among the nations of 140 nations. We have jumped to 52 place today. So that is the kind of push the Honorable Prime Minister has given. Innovation is not new to India. We have a very strong heritage. India's diversity has been a fertile ground for innovation for millions of years, in fact centuries. We are responsible for, because of our rich heritage, invention of zero and decimal system. We were a home to one of the three ancient civilizations, the Indus Valley civilization. And it is a place of the origin of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism. We had pioneering universities like Nalanda and Takshila. Architectural and emerging marvels such as Iron Pillar in Delhi, what you see today, it is actually a marvel. Temples, Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar, works of Arthashastra and Upanishads and so on. And we had traditional great knowledge in medicine, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, dance, music and so on. These are our great backgrounds. Even after 1947, that is a post-independence also, we had serious problems because of the huge number of years of rule by Britishers and others like the Mughals. But we overcame all the problems by doing innovation in agriculture, what we call as the Green Revolution. We did revolution. Gujarat is exclusively responsible for that milk revolution, white revolution we call it. Then telecom growth, ICT export, space exploration, atomic energy, defense and pharmaceuticals. We are one of the largest exporters of pharmas today and biotechnologies. And Indian government has invested a great deal in institutions, setting up infrastructures. Today we have large number of IITs, IIMs, NITs, research institutions, atomic energy centers, Department of Space, huge number of institutions which are responsible for bringing the technology in this country to the level what we see today and what is the kind of innovation that has taken place in various sectors. To give you a glimpse of that, I can see in the agriculture we have in Indian Council of Agriculture with almost 99 institutes and 17 research centers. We have Indian Council of Industrial Research, CSIR, 39 laboratories. We have ICMR, which has been responsible for fighting COVID this time in a big way. We have DRDO with almost about 48 laboratories and large number of universities. In the public domain, we have about 300. And if you add all of them, private and public put together, we are about 800 plus universities. We have more than 2,500 R&D centers. And we have financial institutions to support the innovation like the IDBI and SIDBI and so on. So India's innovation system, if you look at what we call as the ecosystem, is basically because we are today a knowledge-driven economy. We are driven by fundamental research, commercial economy driven by marketplace. That is what the change has taken place after 1992, when we opened up the economy, and today ours is a free market economy which is driven purely by the marketplace. And as I was mentioning to you today, according to the Global Innovation Index, what we call as WP 2019, India ranks 52 among the 131 countries. And we have really jumped almost 30 notches, 30 to 33 notches since last about 5 years. But still, innovation has faced number of barriers. We are trying to overcome many of them, but I would certainly like our student community and all the others who are in the field of innovation, who are wanting to innovate or have the ideas. Our major problem has been that we had certain barriers, and that knowledge was one of the absorption capacity. The IP, the user knowledge, the lack of communication and lack of information. These are to be some of the barriers. And most of us found access to capital was a major problem, cost of financing. In fact, one of the major reasons today for Indian products not being very competitive is our cost of financing is very high. And many times the availability of finance also becomes a problem. We have incentives issues, lack of competition, lack of inducements, and lack of ambition. For innovation to be there, we have to be ambitious, and that is one thing many times it is missing. Then innovation is also driven by market, and it is important for us to identify opportunities. So there has been a problem in identifying opportunities. And also when opportunities are visible, we are not able to understand what are the opportunities. In fact, if you see the pandemic today, I consider that it has got lots of opportunities for people to innovate in sectors like health, communication, education, and so on. So these are opportunities which are knocking at the door. So, but people should be able in a position to recognize those opportunities. Our regulations also have been barriers many times, and we also lack standardization. Many countries are able to standardize, and then they control export, import in a big way in that way. So we have problems of standardization, access to markets, and of course, language barriers. The fact that I'm speaking in English, and certainly a large number of my brothers and sisters may not be able to follow me, it's a handicap. Language barriers, skills, lack of leadership, technological leadership, R&D leadership, and creative thinking skills. These are some of the things which we found as barriers. Then, of course, we have got a cultural problem also. As a race, as a nation, we are risk averse. And we have low levels of entrepreneurship skills. Of course, this is not true for a state like Gujarat, where we find that large number of entrepreneurs are there and they are ready to take risk also. But in general, I'm talking of the country, and we have risk aversion. A lack of understanding innovation. Many people don't understand. They don't understand what is the difference between innovation, discovery, invention. They don't understand that. And we also do not know how to manage a change. For example, today we have a service sector which has been thriving on software skills. But now the software skills are going to completely get changed due to the introduction of artificial intelligence, data analytics and big data and, robotics and so on. But we have to learn how to change and go to a plane which will be actually encompassing all of them. And we also generally don't like to collaborate. So these are some of the barriers. And that's why the innovation system today faces a number of challenges. I'm very happy that some of these challenges have been overcome by the new policies of the present government. But it used to be a major problem, fragmented policy and policy implementation. That used to be a major challenge. We had diffused system of managing things. We were subcritical in many areas. We were not able to provide adequate resources, both human and financial. As a result, we found that this fragmented approach was not leading to better output. Inadequate funding of R&D. You can imagine, compared to the other nations today, in India we spend only about 0.6 to 0.7% of our GDP on R&D, and whereas China is spending about 2 to 3%. Some other, there are US and all who are in the range of 3% to 4%. So there's a significant difference in our spending on R&D, which is certainly responsible for what we call as we are not in the same league as far as the innovation index are concerned. Difficult and lengthy funding process. Many of our MSMEs, many of our small business partners, they find it extremely difficult to get funds from the banks because of the various processes. This is another challenge. Non-conducive education system. Our education system largely has been on the rote basis. It does not induce creative skills. And that is one reason why we are not able to innovate in the same manner like the Israelis have done or like the Swedish have done and so on. Our infrastructure in the villages is not so good, and as a result, the one major segment of innovation, what we call as frugal innovation, that gets completely affected by that. And wherever we found that infrastructure is there, I find our village folks, our people in the rural areas are able to do some good frugal innovation. I will give you some examples later in my talk. Risk aversion among entrepreneurs, I mentioned to you about this, and inadequate protection of intellectual property rights. In fact, we never bother to even register for a patent and things like that. And that is one reason I would say that we are not able to be recognized as a nation which is good in innovating things. If you look at the innovation sequence, the waves of innovation which have taken place since last about 300 years, we remember the 1785 to 1845 when first wave came, when we were having power from water, mechanization, textiles, commerce, and we got iron as one of the major basic materials. Second wave of innovation was when the steam power came, rails came, steam engines came, steel and cotton became the prominent material and so on. And third wave, many of us have witnessed this, which is the electricity, chemicals, internal combustion engines, which have been responsible for changing the complete scenario of how we live our life today, both in terms of communication, transportation, in terms of food, in terms of agriculture. Everything has changed between 1850 to 1950. This has been a great innovative 2 centuries. Then came the fourth wave of innovation, which was in my time, petrochemicals, electronics, aviation, and space, 1950 onwards. This is the fourth wave of innovation. And fifth wave of innovation was, which all of us have seen today, is the digital networks, the biotechnologies, software, information technologies, and so on. And along with the fifth wave, because there's a concurrent approach which is going on, the new things are happening today, which we call as innovation, which is due to sustainability, radical resource and productivity, whole system, biomimic systems, green chemistries, industrial areas in which we have to bring in Industry 4.0, renewable energy, green energy, nanotechnology, and along with this now the artificial intelligence and things like that which are emerging today. So this is what the sixth wave of innovation, and the sixth wave of innovation is being supported exclusively by large number of disruptive technologies which are emerging on the horizon. Some of them I've listed here. Basically, these are transformative and enabling technologies which will improve the productivity, which will bring in more competitiveness in our system, which will create new industries and new manufacturing opportunities, and can provide sustainable, high quality and high wage jobs. This is the power of these technologies, and these technologies we have witnessed already. We saw the service sector providing a larger input to our economy from 1990, we say, and and that has been extended to what we call ICT today. Biotechnology, which is responsible for tremendous change as far as the pharmaceuticals and life sciences are concerned. Nanotechnologies, genomics, microelectronics, new materials which are emerging, remote sensing, artificial intelligence, data analytics, 3D systems, 3D printing, and large number of these technologies which are emerging, and all of them will be responsible for changing the scenario as far as the living styles are concerned, as the way we do business, the way we are going to have our transportation, the way we are going to have our agriculture. All of them will get a massive change. The way we take care of our health, we are already seeing remote healthcare and things like that that are happening. Now this is all part of the innovation using the exclusive technologies which are emerging today. Now, what are the areas of innovation which we have to look at? Being a scientist, I would first talk about science-based innovation, which is generally driven by companies, government, and research and academic institutions. But most of them are highly capital intensive, R&D intensive. They are based on R&D, and that's why you have seen the semiconductors, design of the different microelectronic systems, biotechnologies, pharmaceuticals, which are largely dependent upon exhaustive and very, very rigorous R&D and a lot of capital investment. There are engineering-based innovations which are driven by technology partners. We are seeing that happening today. We are tying up with large number of partners abroad, and as a result, we are able to bring in technologies and build upon them, whether it is the area of aviation or defense or atomic energy or agriculture or health. This is happening. Suppliers, engineering know-how which is coming. We are also doing engineering-based innovation in the communication systems. Auto manufacturing, the process of manufacturing cars, what we used to have in 1940s and 50s, the manufacturing of the Ambassador and the Fiat cars in the country. And today what you see, the automated or semi-automated manufacturing lines which are operational in manufacturing large number of automobiles in the country, starting from Maruti to Honda to this, that, and so on. Same is the case with railroad equipment and aviation. These are some of the things. Then there's an innovation which is focused on consumer needs and customer needs, basically. And these are driven by customer insights, what the customer needs in different areas. Then there is an innovation which is driven by, today a large number of it is happening, the apps what you are seeing, software services and things like that, which is purely based upon a great innovation that took place about 50, 60 years back was the internet. Over that, today we are building a huge society, internet of things, internet of everything, internet of health. So that is a great sense of innovation that is going to happen. Smart cities, household products, household appliances, consumer electronics, all that will certainly form part of the customer focused innovation. But many of them don't need a huge R&D. They can be fairly incremental in many ways, and sometimes they could be very, very innovative also. Then there are processes which are basically used, innovations which are used for improving efficiency. And this is particularly applicable in the sector of textiles, chemicals, electrical equipments, construction machinery. Basically, you do incremental innovation to improve efficiency of operations. Some of them could be capital intensive, and they may not need a large percentage of R&D. I would like to talk about how China has done, because engineering-based innovation, China has excelled very well, and as a result, they have captured the complete global manufacturing market. The engineering-based innovation involves the complex integration of number of components and technologies. You are aware of that. And in this, success is a part science and part skills and part accumulated knowledge. And we do a lot of learning by experimentation, trial and error, as we have done it in many of our areas. When we were building missiles, we used to have failures, we used to have successes. Then again, we'll rebuild and so on and so forth. The entire process was multiple iterations to succeed. And this is the inherent part of the engineering innovation. Generally, government action, as in China, becomes a catalyst for accelerating learning by creating massive local demand and instituting regulations that technology transform by international partners. See, what China used to do is, whenever there is a business to government approach, they will make sure that the Chinese companies participate in that. And these Chinese companies used to capture the know-how tacitly, not very openly, and and learn through that, and then start improving on that and making their own technologies. And as a result, many times we have accused them that they are actually not transparent and they are infringing on the IP rights and so on. But the fact remains that they have built over that, and today they are the largest manufacturer in the world. The formula used most successfully, like in the high-speed railways, China was very poor. Today they share a global market of almost about 40%, and wind power they share a market about 20%, and communication equipment almost about 18%. So that is a kind of approach in engineering innovation which has led to such this kind of a thing. So it is important for India to look at what are the national priorities and in which we have to excel and we have to do innovation. These are exceptional areas where I would say the market is unlikely to produce the desirable outcomes because of the huge R&D investment in many cases. For example, alternative energy sources, clean energy sources. As I mentioned to you, our Honorable Prime Minister has been always saying clean coal technologies, clean energy technologies. That's why renewables came. Now he's talking of coal-based methane, and that will certainly be a cleaner option for creating energy. Another thing is, while the call was for make in India, but actually it is design and make in India. It gives a huge opportunity for us to innovate with new designs and manufacture in India. Defense and aerospace sector certainly looks for innovation because without innovation, you cannot really get excellence. And now you have seen what has happened in this pandemic to IT-enabled health. That means remote, we can take our health services to the remotest corner of our rural areas where today we do not have that kind of health infrastructure. So IT-enabled health is another area for innovation. For getting green economy, methanol economy, to biofuels, to electrical vehicles, coal gasification, combustible cycle, all of them are different areas in which innovation can take place. And there are about a number of grand challenges where one should actually spend time. And India has identified all of them, like Internet of Things, smart cities, smart additive and digital manufacturing, smart anti-cancer therapeutics that deliver drugs only to the tumor cells, high-speed railways, cyber-secured India and digital India, and educational software as a personal teacher. So this we already need them today in the pandemic when we are finding the kids are being taught on remote classes, and I don't know how long it will continue. But if it gets embedded with artificial intelligence and others, I think we will have an immersive education system, which will tomorrow when the pandemic goes, becomes a very good hybrid system where IT enabled education and the classroom education will work together to have a better creativity as among the students. For that, I think the most important thing is among the students is to ensure that we have design thinking as a strategy for innovation. Unless we have design thinking as a strategy for it is a technique for creativity, and which leads to invention, better ideas, and tested solutions. There are certain features of this design thinking. You should be able to find simplicity in complexity. You should be able to see in a complex system how to make it simple and look at the. You should be able to appreciate the beauty of the functionality of the system. You take a robot, you don't worry about the robot, how it looks complex. But when you look at individual elements of this, individual mechanisms of this, you will find the beauty there. How beautifully a linkage is working, how beautifully a power drive is working, and so on. So that is the beauty as well as functionality. Improving quality of experience. When you do this, you will every time when you experiment, you will have a better quality. So that experience will give you better thinking capability. Of course, you should be able to create elegant solutions. And finally, it should serve the needs of the people. And design, you should not think that it is only for designing products. Design can be applied to products, services, processes, physical locations, anything that needs to be optimized for human interaction. You can design the way you lead, the way you think, you create and innovate. There are 8 steps for design thinking. Starting from discovery, where you choose an affirmative strategic topic, gather data, understand and empathize the unmet needs. Then you have frame or reframe the opportunity, and then where you look for patterns, you look for insights, you look for questions, and you make some assumptions. frame your point of view and define the scope in which you should be able to use the technology. Then you incubate. That is the area where you switch gears. Feed your brain with diverse system like that, diverse ideas. Can I do this like this? Can I do this way? Can I put this above this? And think about it. And many ideas you brood over it. Some people say sleep on it. I generally say brood on it. So you brood on those ideas, and you will find that you have got a filter which will be able to help you to come out with the best idea. And then that best idea is called ideate and illuminate, in which you experiment, explore possibilities, and within a desired future, co-create in diverse team, make your ideas visible. That is where you should be able to. After that, when you have done that, you will find things are working not so good. So you iterate and scale. Many times if it is working, you have to do the scaling up. Create, innovate, that is the point. And once that phase is over, you are ready for delivery. At that point in time, you carry out final testing, get the regulatory approvals and so on. And then rapid prototype testing, think big at that stage, but act small. Fail fast, but then recover as early as possible. And because if you fail at a very late stage in the innovation cycle, then you run into problem. So you fail in the beginning, you learn from your failures and then succeed further. And evaluate refined ideas, what is desirable, feasible, viable, and that is where your innovation, the design thinking will help you to reach the ultimate object. Many times there have been issues how innovation system should be funded. In fact, there have been dialogues all over the world that what stage of innovation should be funded by the government, what stage of innovation should get into funding from the investors, and where the... So these two curves will give you a very clear idea. On the x-axis, you see technology transfer. On the y-axis, you have an investment. So you see, when you are in the R&D based innovation, I'm talking basically, where you are doing the basic research. And basic research to about what we call it before you reach the translation, this has to be federally funded. That means the government has to make investment in this area because visibility is very poor. The technology levels will be less than TRL3 and nobody would like to take risk. So only federal funding should be there. But the moment you have reached a stage where the technology levels have gone beyond 3 and there is a visibility of an idea, as I mentioned to you in the previous slide, that you have come to the 8th stage, then public-private design build centers, quasi-open innovation, it should help. That means that government funding will continue declining and private funding will start taking shape. So this is where venture capitalists, angel investors, many of them will come. And the moment you have come and reached that stage, that the translation research will lead to a startup, incubator accelerators, regional innovation centers, they will be now in a position to start funding for that particular idea. And here, the progression, you can see that the major investment will coming from these centers, that is the private enterprises, private investors, and the government funding is declining to 0. And the moment you have crossed the valley of death of the innovation cycle, and you are on the upswing, then the commercialization stage, 100%, 70 to 80% funding to 100% funding from the companies. And that is the way the world over innovation funding system has taken place. And I think India also, we should follow a similar pattern. And US has been following it very rigorously. And most of the funding in the basic research phase and in the translation research phase is federal funded. And later on, the private investments come in. Now, I'd like to talk to you about startups because once you do innovation, and the startups play a major role. Startup intellectual property backed technology product platform, commerce, aggregators using digital platform for customer engagement only considered. Now, here I have a slight difference of opinion. It need not be only what is a digital platform for engagement. Digital platform is a source. It need not be only some apps. The startups can be on engineering products or anything. So you have companies incorporated, registered in 2011. This is what we call a startup. Founding members should be Indian origin. company headquartered in India or outside with product development centers largely in India, and intellectual property, big technology product or technology platform or e-commerce or aggregators, they are considered as startups. So India investment landscape, if you see today, the second largest population in the world we have. We have more than 50% of its population is below the age of, and more than 65% below the age of 35. UN World Population Aging Report estimates until 2040, India will remain one of the young countries in the world, the second largest smartphone population in the world with the lowest data cost, 700 million monthly active users using the internet. So this is the kind of investment landscape for people who want to invest in India. And if you see the Indian startup landscape over the last about 6 years to 7 years, in fact, now I said 2014 to 2019, 55,000 startups launched in India. 63 billion funding raised by Indian startups is a huge amount. Almost 3,202 number of funded startups. Almost 4,640 investors participated in the Indian startup funding. 34 unicorns are there. Out of them, almost about 17 to 18 are in India and rest are outside. Almost 5,400 funding deals witnessed, and 7 years average time taken by Indian startups in reaching a unicorn status. So unicorn means you are in the billion league. For those who are thinking of starting a startup, I have outlined some of the steps which the young generation should be able to look at. Why young? Everybody should be able to follow this, and these are these steps. You should be looking into the future. You have to live in the future to be a startup, ahead of your time. And when you say ahead of your time, when we were doing, say, for example, IT services, we were using statistical tools for doing some kind of noise filtering. But today, there were people at that time itself who were talking about artificial intelligence. They were looking into the future, and AI now today has become the buzzword for as far as the software and the robotics are concerned. So living in the future, what is missing in the world? You should be looking at what are the areas which we can capture. For example, if I now today say that if I can produce carbon dioxide, if I can make use of carbon dioxide to produce fuel, I'll be solving a major problem of the sustainability. So today people are talking of how to produce use carbon dioxide, which is being belched out from large number of chimneys and steel foundries and so on, and going and polluting the atmosphere. People are not talking of using CO2 for production of hydrogen, and that will become a fuel for tomorrow. So like this, what is missing in the world? We have to look at that, write it down, and bounce ideas around. Now think, and then start discussing with people. Then once you freeze, you make a prototype. Then show the prototype you have made to 100 people so that you get their ideas. Once you have done that, you launch. Let everyone know you have made something. You say that I have done this. For example, there are a number of people who came to me who are now working on recycling of lithium-ion batteries. They got the idea because they know that lithium is going to be a major problem as far as the electric mobility is concerned because of the limited resources in the world. So they said, why not recycle? And recycling of lithium became one of the major projects of innovation today. And cost of recycling becomes a major parameter which is driving the technology. Similarly, now look for funding and build version 1 at the same time. Register your corporation, split equity, find a co-founder, iterate on the prototype until it makes sense, and then start following up with the users. In fact, people started coming to me about this lithium battery even before they have actually got into the hardware. But they have already got the chemistry done, so they were discussing with me. So follow up with them, and then you see whether they are coming back, the user, or not coming back. If they are coming back, then you are in a good shape. Then you have about 1,000, get to about 10,000 users. Go there, grow 5% a week. Then keep growing, and then you are in the success. You by 2019-20 you will become a great. But suppose in case you are not able to get a feedback, they don't come back to you. Then you launch again your product after iterating, finding out what are the problems. Launch until users stay with you. I'll give you an example. Airbnb launched about 3 times before they became a major innovation platform. So this is the cycle which you have to follow for doing things. And the ecosystem for innovation, ecosystem startup is ideas, inventions and research, which are the inputs. Startups at various stages, entrepreneurs, and then startup team members, they make a system. You have to look for investors, you have to look for mentors, you have to look for advisors, other entrepreneur people, people from related organizations, and they can be from any of them. They could be from big companies, universities, funding organizations, service providers, research organizations. This becomes, I know, even the support organizations who will provide you variety of inputs. So they become the part of your ecosystem. So the difference between innovation ecosystem and the startup ecosystem is depicted here. In the innovation ecosystem, you have big companies and public sector innovation taking place in closed processes and internal resources. Customers, startups, funding sources, they become external to it. Whereas the moment you go to the startup, innovation by startups become the primary focus, and then all rest become the providers of inputs. For example, you can have a researcher, you can have funding source, you can have service provider, and so on. So this is the kind of difference in that. And there is a collaborative approach for doing innovation and startup. And that model is where you have universities, public research, business startups, and industrial sector and government systems. They are integral part of this triangle, joining hands with each other. And for that, you have to do the survey of each other's capability. You have to see how the research on industry, academia, government system collaboration is working. How many outputs are available there? Will I be able to make use of them? Similarly, you should look at survey research on the current status and issues in the academia, startups, in the business sector. See what are the survey, the research on regional innovation activities and the regional innovation systems, case studies of the regional clusters, like, for example, the food cluster or the electronics clusters and so on. There are 3 ways to innovate startup idea. Innovation through concentration, that is, entails taking a validated business model and adopting to new conditions. You take a business model which you have seen somewhere and you try to apply to your condition in Gujarat or Maharashtra or India as a whole, or because you have picked it up from some other country, and then you see customize it to this purpose. So that is concentration. Innovation from repurposing entails taking an existing business model and adapting to solve new problems. I'll give you a very simple example. This time when the pandemic was there was no drug available except for HCQ, which was the malaria drug, which people were using for malaria. Similarly, remdesivir, which was being used for something else. Our CSIR laboratory started doing repurposing innovation. They started trying out these drugs for this kind of a corona application. And that's why you found HCQ and remdesivir became the drug of the choice, and many other people got really benefited by that. So this is repurposing. Incremental innovation, I mentioned to you, the form of innovation is about creating support solutions through better features, user experience and process. Many things. For example, you have a rickshaw, and in the rickshaw you put a motor. I have seen in Gujarat, large number of people are converting rickshaws with the motors and all that, and the manual lever has gone up. So these are all incremental innovations. They are frugal also in many ways. You should actually do a check on your system, and whether you are ready for a startup, whether your startup idea is good enough or not. For that, these 10 questions have to be answered. Are you passionate about it? If it is only a casual thinking, then it will not survive. You have to be passionate. Does it solve one problem with one product for one customer in mind? You have that equation. Can you identify revenue stream? Can you see how it will be sold, how it will be marketed, how it will earn revenue? How many steps need to happen before profit? In general case, not more than 3 steps are ideal. Do you know your customer? Who is going to be your customer if you do the innovation? Are you an expert in your market, or you are one among them? If you are an expert, that's a different story. Then you have a much better way. But if you are one among them, then you have a different class of competition which you have to face. How big is the market? Make sure it is not too large and it is not too small. Because if it is too small, your gains will be too small. And if it is large, then you will find difficulty in accessing it. Is there something that will make the company more unequal, stand out? It should be able to stand out. Have you made sure that the idea is really a good idea? Have you done the research, received feedback? Would the idea buy into your idea? So these are the things which you have to answer before you actually do a startup. And the most important thing here is the creation of value. There was a famous guy called Theodore Levitt. He said, people don't want quarter-inch drills. They want quarter-inch hole. It doesn't matter how you create. It is a hole you have to create. Now, whether the drill is quarter-inch or something else. So your value is what is important. And value is nothing but benefit minus cost. So on this lever, you can see learning down an existing investment will not lead you anywhere. So you will have easy integration, adding value and solving problem. That is the way you have to create. So perceived value must exceed cost. If you can clearly describe your products is beneficial and cost effective case for purchasing it, then you have created sufficient value to overcome the cost. So value proposition is a must. And startup creation process is that you have number of milestones. Like in the seeding, first 6 to 12 months, then first round product 12 to 18 months, second round 12 to 13 months, and third round is about third. These are all regulatory distribution now. And all the sectors, management, marketing, sales, clinical, regulatory, have to do a certain job and in these phases. For example, in the first phase, the most important person is the project leader. And he has to be really upcoming. He has to ensure that the innovation is better managed. In the first round, he becomes the CEO. In the second round, the CEO with the full team. And the third round, similarly, market value. Initially, when the innovation is on, you are doing assessment. Then first round, you got market entry and so on. Product development, which is the part of the innovation cycle. So proof of concept has to be done. Then product completion has to be done. And then next generation, you start thinking of how do I make a next generation product using this? Because you can't sit on one particular design. You have to start thinking of next generation design. Regulatory, for example, medicines today, even the vaccine which we are trying today needs to go through regulatory mechanisms of getting it tested. So if we don't define what regulatory mechanisms are there for getting your innovation out in the market, you will face the wall when actually you go there. So it is important, and that is the way value gets into a ladder scale and revenue starts keep building like this. New trends in the stand-up, we find generally that the cities are 70% of the founders who responded from this survey, they are from tier 1 cities like Bangalore, National Capital Region, Bombay, Chennai, and non-metros are only 31%. Among the men and women, there is a split. The men metro 70% and non-metro 30%. Whereas women in the metro about 79% and non-metro is 21%. That is a kind of a split there. And the big hurdles which are being faced are raising funds, finding and retaining talent, government and regulatory issues, finding customers, delaying customers. There also, there's a difference between the approach of a man and a woman. You have India's potential unicorn startup, I already mentioned to you. In 2018, we were 17 unicorns, and today, 2019, we are 24. Number of startups were 7,700 to 8,200, and today we are now about 9,300. And total funding has also changed from 4.2 to 4.4. So there has been a huge jump just in 1 year itself. And there are leading investors available in India today. India's startup continues to remain attractive among investors, raising more than almost $2 billion corpus for future investments. And you see the names, many of you may be knowing these: Tencent, Sequoia, Tiger Global, Harmony Partners, SoftBank, and so on. They are various, and they give the investment of different kinds. But the verticals in which they are helping are media tech, health tech, e-commerce, aggregators, real estate. You notice one thing: fintech also is there, financial tech. You notice one thing, that here minimum investment is coming on engineering innovation. Most of the verticals are service oriented, finance oriented, and infrastructure oriented. So there is a small gap which we are finding, where we find that investments are not coming in the engineering innovation, engineering startups. And if you say there has been an investor landscape, there are almost about 350 plus up to about 20% year on a year active angel investors in 2016. average about $25,000 to $30,000 amount per active engineer. You have 180 up by 15% in 2016. Average amount almost about $4 to $5 million. These are kind of things is happening. There are a number of challenges. Ecosystem elements are industry agnostics with more focus on technological innovation. What are the opportunities in these areas? If you look at technology is the core focus. For example, today, big data, analytics and cloud, followed by core technologies such as Internet of Things, 3D manufacturing, machine learning, and AI. They are the basic focus areas. All the industry agnostics focus more is on BFSI. Most prominent industry vertical among the incubators, followed by retail, media, entertainment, edutech, and manufacturing. I mentioned to you. Again, missing is the engineering part. Co-innovation, co-product, and opportunity area, incubators, corporate accelerators, co-innovations and co-product development that can help in solving customers. But there are challenges. Mismatch in expectations. Limited time period for incubation and evaluating startups is a big challenge. These are some of the challenges which are being faced today. Startup and Stand Up India, a central government action plan. How we have done so far, I would like to give an impression to you. I would like to first quote from what Honorable Prime Minister mentioned. I see startups, technology and innovation as exciting and effective instruments for India's transformation. And that's why funding corpus of almost $1.5 billion. Tax exemptions coupled with other initiatives to boost the startup ecosystem. They have been put in place. To meet the objectives of Startup India initiative, central government announced an action plan that addresses all aspects of the startup ecosystem. For example, we have allowed self-certification for compliance with labor and environmental laws. We have allowed Startup Hubs India to act as a single point contact. We can register through an app in one day. 80% rebate on patent filing fee. Relaxation in the public procurement. Faster exit, 90 days to exit from the business. You can do that. You have funding support through a fund of funds with a corpus of almost 1.5 billion. That is about 10,000 crores. It's spread over a period of 4 years. You have a credit guarantee fund. You have tax exemption on capital gains. No income tax on profit for 3 years. Tax exemption on investment above market value. Organizing startup fest, 500 tinkering labs and 3D and printing in university. You know, Atal Innovation Mission, which is being run by the NITI Aayog. We have more than about now 1,500, now 3,000 tinkering labs working in the country. In the schools, right from primary school, middle school to secondary schools. Public-private incubators, innovation centers, new research park setup, biotechnology sector part setup, and annual incubator grant challenges are being announced, and focus program for students. So these are the kind of ecosystem which this government has created for ensuring that we really make a major change as far as startup and innovation is concerned. There are a number of schemes which are available today. There's a credit guarantee scheme which works with small industries. Bank facilitates working capital requirements to micro and small businesses. Business can avail loans up to about 1 crore with low interest rate. Stand Up India, where we are giving a push to women and SC/ST communities, facilitates bank loans between 10 lakhs to 1 crore. Infrastructure development created by National Small Industry NIC. Micro units development and refinance agency through Mudra and scheme for technology upgradation. These are some of the, but there are still, despite all that, we have some pros and some cons and in the India system. I will first talk of the what are the pros. Abundant supply of local pool of software engineers. We have deep knowledge of MNCs due to IT's outsourcing experience. We have unique edge as global SMEs not served well by US MNCs. A growing MNC R&D hub and a vibrant startup ecosystem. There are cons, which is India not mature to lead the product development way. In fact, our problem is that we are not good designers. We do not do product development ourselves. We only take outside products and produce in our country. This has been our practice. This is not a good sign. Historically weak in marketing and building global brands. Government yet to make to the unique needs of the product startups. Investor ecosystem shallow with limited understanding of business to business kind of deals. Then we have this situation in the last 6 months, 5 months. I thought I'll also spend some time on this. Impact of COVID on the startups. India has the third largest startup, as I mentioned to you. 2019 was a blockbuster year in the history of startups in the country, with about $14.5 billion in funds, which were raised cumulatively. These short-term challenges can be turned into long-term opportunities for strong companies that are willing to transform swiftly. As the situation around the health emergency continues, startups are focusing their efforts on the how and what needs to be done to weather the impact of coronavirus outbreak. The crisis is reducing the creation of startups. A missing generation of new firms has significant implications on economic outcomes, notably employment and disproportionate contribution to job creation, and which can be mitigated by supporting existing startups and creating new firms. The COVID-19 pandemic emerged, disrupting financial markets and leaving the world teetering on the edge of an economic downturn. In fact, if you look at India's economy, is going to be 5 notches down negative in this year. Now, we were about 4.5, so we are practically going negative now. However, for business with less than 5 million revenue, they will be getting disproportionately affected by the pandemic. A permanent income loss in the Asia-Pacific region due to pandemic projects, a decline of almost 22% in seed funding India. Most existing startups face significant challenges due to COVID. At a time of uncertainty, startups become even more financially unviable and need support for their short-term liquidity needs. Although the COVID-19 outbreak is and will continue to be a significant challenge for the startup ecosystem, the current crisis may also lead to short-run and long-run opportunities. What are those? If you see the way the downturn has taken place in various sectors which are listed here, right from travel and tourism to blockchain, right from minus 70% decline between December 2019 to June 2020 to as low as 14% decline has taken place. So this is a kind of scenario in all sectors which has been affected by the COVID. Startups expect to benefit from innovative products in post-pandemic world. Stakeholders in the Indian startup ecosystem are pivoting to channelize innovation in healthcare, insurance sector, a new pathway for mobility, like enabling an agile and seamless mobility system, reshaping of learning. India education tech sector is the biggest in the world and is valued to almost 2 billion and is expected to increase to 12.6 billion in about 2025. E-commerce is becoming the order of the day. Work from home as a new normal. If a journey of growth has to be continued now, it is time for startups to display resilience and create, not only when they can think outside the box, can they innovate and create future opportunities for business. There are 24 ways to survive COVID-19 for startups and small business. These are basically related to how we should update the online subscription, renegotiate supplying contracts, leverage government and lender concessions, apply for non-COVID grants, and so on. There are a large number of these initiatives which have been listed out here. But basically, all of them and some of them, depending upon what you need to use, will be of help if you want to come out of this crisis. And they will certainly help you to relook at what is happening. The pandemic has also created new opportunities for startups that can adapt to the current environment. In July, Indian startups witnessed 1,484% jump in investment in March. Indian startups bagged a total of 5.6 billion investment from companies in July. More than 60 startups raised funds in July 2020. Among them, early stage startups were 44. Took away bulk of investment. And the areas in which this happened was telecom, infrastructure, consumer sector, education, real estate and construction technology, retail, media and entertainment. That is where even during the COVID, we have seen the kind of growth. And the top startups, as I mentioned to you earlier also, remain EdTech, health, SaaS, e-commerce, OTT platforms, pharma and office space. The economy is uncertain for growth, widest unemployment looms over us, upcoming quarters, but not sectors. These would continue to shine in the cloudiest of the weather. Even despite this, these sectors will certainly be looking at this. Digital technology is redesigning, augmenting healthcare process, in which you have tracking and awareness, diagnosis remotely, treatment remotely, finding a cure remotely, using big data analytics, artificial intelligence, telemedicine, analytics for diagnosis, drones for dispersing medicines, and so on. They are all becoming power of the day. So there are future business will see 8 innovation factors for startups: timing when to innovate, corporate startups engagement in action, success factors for corporate startup engagement, evolution of the corporate accelerator model. How do you accelerate? Investment landscape in India, future of the open innovation, which is very important. With this kind of IT infrastructure, open innovation is the order of the day. Innovation opportunities triggered by COVID and the future of informal knowledge networks. So India's economic power, population growth, technology advancements, environmental pressures, changing expectations are demanding innovative approaches and innovative continued growth towards about 5 trillion mark. The timing could not be better for the startup ecosystem. And these are some of the opportunities which we can look at. But most important thing, and which we should not miss out in this today's talk, is the grassroots innovation for social change, because that is where the integration of the knowledge and the skills of the people at the bottom of the pyramid to the topmost who are doing R&D. And grassroots innovation is a combination of process of frugal innovation, sustainability driven innovation, socially driven innovation, and all three of them put together, using the basic skills and knowledge which resides to the traditional approaches which the country has followed, and they lead to large number of innovation. There's a master innovation person in our country. His name is Anil Gupta. He has worked in Gujarat for many years. And if you see his laptop, you will find large number of grassroots innovations which have come. In fact, in fact, some of the examples are like Groundnut Digger by Sanjay Kumar Tilwa from Rajkot, Gujarat, which he has done a groundnut digger, which is turnover of almost 40 lakhs. You have a paddy thresher by Mr. Fazul Haq and Morrigan in Assam with a turnover of 45 lakhs, which has been, he is using the existing technologies in the villages and things like that. There's a tree climber for picking up the coconuts and things like that, which is again having a turnover of about 22 lakhs, which has been developed by Mr. Venkat DN in Coimbatore. Multi-purpose processing machine, an innovation done by Shri Dhanami Singh Kamboj, Yamunanagar, Haryana, which is capable of processing various herbs like juice, gel, aloe vera, and all that, which creates some kind of a biomass and biogas and then electricity and so on. Then you have modified boiler, which has been done by Subhash Ola and from Rajasthan, which has a mechanism to recycle used steam, so that's generated by boiling water in the boiler, returns to the boiler, and gets a temperature about 90 to 100 degrees for heat for the useful purpose. So using this technology, it was to save fuel, and he has a turnover of almost 1 crore. Biomass gasification system in Rajasthan, which has been extensively used now, and this is done by Raj Singh Dahiya of Jaipur, Rajasthan. And you find that these people are not very highly trained, skilled people. They have utilized their traditional knowledge, traditional village skills which are available, and also what they are seeing on a day-to-day life, and able to create value out of nothing. Bicycle hoe, which is a multi-purpose farm implement fashioned out of inexpensive bicycle. The main part of the implement consists of the front portion of a bicycle. Steel fork is connected to the axle, and the other end carries different kinds of attachments. So with that, it is able to attach, and a person can weed almost about 0.08 hectare per hour. So useful innovation. So you see, grassroots innovation, creative ways we should encourage, and encourage the growth of micro venture finance. If we are able to provide micro venture finance, I think grassroots innovation will flourish. Extend the public pool of innovation by providing financial incentives to innovators. Our earlier Honorable President, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, and prior to that, Dr. Kalam, used to organize for the grassroots innovators in the President House an exhibition every year, where I have witnessed a large number of people coming from villages, bringing all their implements, how they are modifying them for variety of applications, for agriculture applications, for reading, and so many things. So it is important that we really bring them and provide financial, recognize, respect, and reward. create community fabrication workshops in homes, and this is what we should provide. If we can create community fabrication workshops, I think people will be able to convert ideas and make use of the local skills. Build partnerships, invest in children idea, mobilize university students, and so on. Now, some policy responses that can help speed up the recovery from COVID-19. We have to tackle short-term challenges, support short-term financial needs, raise awareness about existing measures, support R&D, reduce barriers to entrepreneurship, boost entrepreneur potential, and a blueprint for post-COVID-19 recovery, what government action looks like. One, you must have known that Government of India has opened the infrastructure pipeline by allocating huge amount of money there. So allocate additional spectrum in the telecom, fast track the 5G licensing, establish favorable regulation for access, and invest in NGA network upgrade, and invest in fiber to core network. This is what we should. We should also do 5G rollout, make convergent license condition, invest in ICT infrastructure. And technology, if you look at it, ensure technology neutral regulations. Establish favorable regulation for innovation. Support SMEs and strengthen cybersecurity, because we are becoming a major digital nation. So cybersecurity becomes very important. Reinforce consumer and SME rights, and so on. Suggestions for government initiatives. We have to make some suggestions even now. Introducing tax incentives for products developed using products, services from startups, and revenue from startup engagement. We have to provide them tax incentives. Ensure a favorable tax rate for expenses incurred, corporate teams working with startups, allocate a portion of profits to fund startups. Several PSUs, like the oil and gas sector, are already doing this. Allow CSR funds to be used to finance corporate innovation programs. Design funding programs for startups by strengthening roles of public funding, and formulate government procurement and global trade rules that are more open to startups, so that startup products like the GEM portal, and now the initial, the major announcement where we have said that 200 crores, below 200 crore contracts will have to be taken only from the Indian companies, so startups can have a major role there. So the way forward is vocal for local. India has several programs like Make in India, Startup India, Agni, GEM, Digital India, which can play a vital role. Introduce frequent use of new age technologies, more reforms in ease of doing business. Innovation centricity, India to boost its innovation ecosystem further and enable the reaching out of the last miles for empowering the rural community with various entrepreneurial models. And the way the migration of labor has taken place from cities to the villages, I think the skills which these laborers have now picked up over years of working in the urban areas, I think they can be harnessed to create entrepreneurs in the villages, provided we provide them the right ecosystem, right financial support, and the kind of workshop supports and things like that which we are talking of. Bring investment in research and development. I already talked to you. We have to increase our funding in R&D, and through Agni, we have been working in R&D labs for country. Research and development is the key in accelerating self-reliance in economy, increase in more public-private response collaboration. Though our research institutes have bright talents and brilliant, our innovative solutions, they often get suppressed due to the lack of funding opportunities. If nurtured well, such alliances will decrease the problem of dependency, depend on innovation or imports, and hence our products suitable for a more globalized market. We will be in a position to. Finally, I would like to close this talk by saying that with all this, what I have just presented, I have the following to say. India has got all the ingredients and potential required for innovation. Let us convert this potential into reality by establishing a strong academia, industry, and national R&D labs collaboration. In fact, I'll go a step ahead by giving a clarion call to all of you in this web to participate and contribute India not only to innovate, but to out-innovate and out-educate and out-perform the rest of the world to gain the top position in the world. And that is what all of us as a citizen, as an innovator, as a startup company, as an entrepreneur, as a well-wisher of our community, we can do let us decide to innovate. Let us work towards innovation. Let us support each other on innovation. I'm sure right from villages to the metropolis, there's a hard number of the young population available who are really dynamic, intellectually savvy, and they are in a position to cash on to the opportunities which are emerging to take our country to this 5 trillion economy mark and make us self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saraswat. The last 1 hour has been a quite great learning about the innovation holy grail for the entire ecosystem. We got a lot of insights from you. We learned a lot from ideas how we can create these systems. Now, I would like to request Anju Sharma, Madam, the Principal Secretary, Higher and Technical Education and Chairperson of iHub, to share her observations and how to take this movement forward.
Namaskar, sir. And very good evening to all the viewers, and a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all the viewers. It has been indeed a pleasure for all of us to hear Dr. Saraswat on his ideas about innovation. He has been leading the innovation and startup initiatives of Government of India for a long time, and we have seen how this has impacted the entire ecosystem development in India. In fact, I have found some of his ideas as very, very revolutionary. And in this time of COVID, especially when we are moving towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, at that time, these ideas are going to make a lot of difference to the way people think. Actually, in Gujarat, when we started the Student Startup and Innovation Policy in January 2017, when we launched it, the policy included most of these things when it came to supporting the pre-incubation part for the students. And at that time, like it was, I think Gujarat was one of the leaders in bringing up this kind of effort in the pre-incubation sector, where we could support our students in innovation. And as a result of this, we've been able to encourage our students in a big way. We fund them up to average rupees 2 lakh per project, depending on their requirement. We also take up projects for larger funding. As a result, more than 700 IPRs have been filed in the last 2.5 years. And more than 500 startups, they have emerged from the academia. But still, I feel a lot is required to be done, sir. And state governments have limited resources, and they need a large push from the Government of India as far as funding and procurement support and the policy support is required. What I feel is that when I also looked at the figures that you indicated about the number of total startups that have come and the number of total startups that have received funding, there is a huge, huge, huge gap. And the startups that are able to make it to the venture funds and they are able to kind of strike it with them are very limited. And venture funds, as well as the angel funds, they have their own way of looking at things, and they're looking at scale, and they're looking at volumes, and they are looking also at teams and sustainability. And certainly any startup which is launched by or which is initiated by somebody who is from a government college in any state is not viewed at par with something which has come from some IIT students. And that kind of, I would say, an elitism still prevails in the, I may be being too candid on this, but then a kind of elitism prevails in the entire startup funding sector. And one really feels how one can get over this, because it's a market that values brand. And the IT and the IM brand certainly prevails over any other brand. And sometimes the very fact that when they look at the profile of their students and they see like where is it coming from, then they may not even go into the details of the projects. So that's one thing that I've been finding over all these years working in the sector. This is now I'll be completing my 4th year working in the startup sector, and I feel this pinch a lot. And I feel that initiatives like iHub and similar initiatives in the state governments, they should get a lot of support from the center and kind of a fund pool so that we can fund these kind of startups. Because when we are taking up from our side, from the iHub, me and my team, the mentoring of the startups, we find that they have very small problems and they have very small requirements. Like they want to scale up their product, so they want some kind of funding, about 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 50 lakh, liquidity support, working capital support, and they are not able to get. Moreover, the risk component is very high, and the investors do not want to invest in them, not only because they don't believe in them, but because everybody is looking for good returns for their money and wants to go in for low risk kind of investments and with high returns. So I think having a pool, as you also very rightly said, that the state governments have to create pools of their own. But I think we can look forward to a lot of support from the government of India. And I know institutions like SIDBI, they are doing a lot in this, and we can look forward to a lot of help from them. Certainly, your take on technology was really, really very impressive. And without technology, we don't see anything coming up. But I see that the kind of emphasis that should be there on STEM in the in general in education is somehow missing. So we are trying to give it a push here also. But I'm sure in the new education policy and through the kind of very, very innovative kind of pedagogy that is being promoted under new education policy, STEM will get required support, and that is going to help us in gaining a lot of ground in the emerging technologies and the kind that you mentioned. When the world has moved on 5G and we have not yet come on 5G, a lot of scope we see in the defense and the aerospace sector. And therefore, we have launched a defense challenge already, where we have taken about 125 statements from Army, Navy, and Air Force, and also border security. And we have opened them to our innovators to suggest innovative ideas, innovative solutions for these, so that the good ideas and the scalable ideas can then be commercialized, and we can make a difference to the country's defense and the aerospace sector. We also have a large number of startups in agriculture, and a lot of innovative products are there by the students. Students are really now very excited. They are highly motivated to take up innovations. And over a period of the last more than 3 years of SSIP, one thing important that we've been able to do is that we have been able to reach to the length and breadth of the state in the remotest areas, where now the students know what is innovation, what is a startup, and that's made a huge difference. We've also utilized these COVID times very effectively, and in fact, COVID times in a way became a blessing for us, because we could do a lot of work staying indoors. And we started the 100 webinar series. We successfully completed it. We've started virtual mentoring. We've started a large number of flagship programs. And one very important thing that we have started is a 70-hour IPR course, which is unique in world. And even WIPO does not offer that kind of exhaustive course at such a low cost. And that has been subscribed by more than 5,000 participants. And we have the support of CIPAM, Government of India, AICTE on that, and we have certification from that. That is going to really bring in awareness about the intellectual property, because that's another part of the innovation. That innovators have to feel confident that their intellectual property will be protected. And once they do it, once they know how it is done, things become safer and more comfortable for them, and the innovators come out. Another thing is the kind of inhibitions they have. So through a series of capacity building programs, hand-holding programs, we're trying to build that capacity. I have a very, very high performing and motivated team at iHub, and in SSIP we have Hiranmay as CEO and my higher education director, Mr. Nagarajan, and also we have as our chief mentor, Dr. Himanshu Pandya, who are always there to support the initiatives of iHub and contribute in a big way to the entire program, entire drive that we have taken up to bring that sea change in the innovation and startup sector in Gujarat and through Gujarat to the entire country. Sir, we've been really delighted to have you here, not only because we have learned a lot from your presentation, but also in you we see a great ray of hope for the entire startup and innovation sector. And I'm sure with the kind of zeal that you're working, we have a lot to look forward in the coming days. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam, for beautifully summing up this special session, and a beautiful session by Dr. V.K. Saraswatji. I, on behalf of the entire team of iHub, Government of Gujarat, on behalf of the entire student, startup and innovation community, would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And your presentation was really forward-looking, and we'll certainly take these ideas to implementation level and come back to with some concrete outcome. And like you gave us formulas or mantras for forward-moving approach of Make in India through startups and innovation, we'll work hard and certainly contribute towards making new India. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaskar.